Welcome to the Edges of Lean. I'm Bella Engelbach, and in this podcast we explore the human and creative side of lean thinking, unusual places where lean thinking is practiced. We meet people who are practicing continuous improvement in many different flavors and styles. So come along with me on a journey to the edges of lean.
Episode 22, Continuous Improvement for Women Over 50. With today's special guests, Robin Tillotson and Deondra Wardelle. Robin Tillotson is an activist for joyful aging with more than 20 years of experience in aging services. She's most passionate about helping Black women over 50 thrive and age well. As part of her mission, she hosts the podcast This I Do For Me, Women Over 50, Black and Fabulous, and she curates cultural experiences, including bespoke international travel experiences for senior women. Deondra Wardelle is a visionary, coach, strategist, speaker, consultant, a Kata Geek, and she's passionate about developing a world of problem solvers. Robin Tillotson and Deondra Wardelle, welcome to the Edges of Lean.
Thank you, Bella. It's great to be here.
Yes, thank you, Bella. It's great to be here, and it's great to be here with Robin.
Yeah, so I'm happy to have the two of you because you have a really interesting story to tell, which is a story about women and is a story about Kata, which we haven't really talked about on this podcast before. And it's a story about interesting ways that people make connections. And Deondra, I should really say, welcome back to the Edges of Lean because this is a return appearance for you. So I'm so happy that you're back with me today. So I'd like to start with Robin. Robin, you have a really, really interesting business and an interesting business model. I wonder if you could just tell us about that for a minute.
Sure. So my business is called This I Do For Me. And the name came from a saying that my mother used to say all the time when she had sacrificed a lot for me and my brother and finally bought something for herself or did something for herself. So I remember her buying a purse and she showed us the purse and said, "This I do for me." So that always stuck with me. I guess I was about 11 or 12 years old. And so when it came down to deciding what type of business I was going to start, which was, I knew I wanted it to center around women who were age 50 plus. And I picked that cohort because I noticed that they are a group that is always doing for others. Aging parents, spouses, raising grandchildren, they're in the sandwich generation. And so I noticed though, Bella, that they were not necessarily taking time to do something specifically for themselves. So hence the title, This I Do For Me. And so the business is centered around providing international travel opportunities for that cohort of 50 plus. And we have actually been on every continent except Antarctica. And I can promise you, we're not going to Antarctica. And at least I'm not. But anyway, so we've been on every continent and the goal is not a hedonistic experience where you are just traveling for the sake of traveling, but also using that opportunity to delve into personal development, inner exploration, and that kind of thing.
Wow. And how long have you been doing this now?
Since 2015. And then as of 2019, I started a podcast called This I Do For Me, Women Over 50, Black and Fabulous. So that is an extension, the podcast is an extension of the business, and it focuses on highlighting the phenomenal things that women age 50 plus are doing.
That's really incredible. You know, one of the things that I noticed as, you know, I spent a long time feeling like I was the youngest person in the room. And then all of a sudden I wasn't anymore.
Join the
But
club.
yeah, and then, but the thing that I noticed was exactly what you're saying, that so the further along you came, and even if you were in a career that was really progressing, there were all these other things that just got layered on top, and if you have children, you think when they're grown up that you're done, and you're probably not really done,
Not
and
really.
parents and all of that. So I think that's a marvelous business. But it wasn't really when you first got started. I don't think you knew anything about lean or kata at the time, did you?
No, I have actually known about lean and kata since, I would say the first time, let me backtrack. The first time I heard about it, I actually heard Deondra on a podcast. And it seemed so familiar, so phenomenal. I was like, what is this? And I just was blown over by the concepts of it and how she explained it. And, sometimes you just form a connection with someone even before you meet them. And so right away, I contacted my cousin, Tamara Winfrey, who had also been posting about vision board workshop that Deondra had developed. And she was so excited about it. I said, well, let me have her information. And so I was unable to contact her initially, I think due to some changes that were going on with her website and that kind of thing. But I'm the type of person that believes if something is meant to happen, it will happen. So a year after that, Bella, Tammy posted again about it. And then I went to her website and saw that it was a completely new website. And then I reached out to her at that time and took her vision boarding workshop, and actually brought along a colleague too, who was very impressed with the whole process.
Wow. And so Deondra, I think you told me that Robin hunted you down. Is that the...
Well, I don't know if hunted is a good term, but a good way to describe it. But I think we almost hunted each other.
Yeah.
And the universe allowed us to connect at the right space, place, and time. And again, I think when the first podcast that she heard me on was a podcast by a colleague and someone who's actually gone through the strategic visioning process, is Donna Sheely. The second time I think we were virtually reintroduced is on a live Facebook talk show that Tammy is part. She's one of the co-hosts, and Tammy is so interesting is that she went through the strategic visioning process early on when I first started doing these workshops. And she is the one who said to me, you need to stop calling it a vision board workshop and start calling it a strategic vision board workshop, because of what you learn in terms that, the foundation of lean and the steps of the improvement kata are incorporated in what's being taught to the learner. And so Robin happened to be tuning in. I remember that she was chatting as the show was going on. She was posting comments on Facebook, and immediately after that, she reached out to me and wanted to know when I would be hosting or facilitating the next strategic vision board workshop. And she joined, and the rest has been history. We've been virtually joined at the hip since then.
Wow. So what does that mean to be virtually joined at the hip then? What is that relationship like?
So what that relationship is like is we're connected through social media. And she, as she has started her process of identifying her vision and working towards that, one of the things that Robin determined that would be meaningful for her to move along, to her future state and what it is that she was working on, or what it is she's working on in her business and her personal life, she asked that I started coaching her. And so we've scheduled regular coaching sessions, and we take what she developed from that initial strategic visioning experience, and we're using that to build on that to accomplish her goals. And what I mean in terms of us being connected at the hip, I also follow her on social media. And I get excited when I see the different things she's experimenting with. And, and I check out her podcast. And so I'm always sending her messages of encouragement, to keep going. And at the same time, she periodically will have questions about the steps of the kata. And I say this about her, and I mean this in the most respectful and loving way possible. She is like a little sponge. She is, where she started in her journey in discovering lean compared to where she is now, the book she's read, the webinar she's attended, and she's taking all of that information and she sees how that connects to the work that she's doing in her business and the work that she's doing with others. And it's just simply, I have so enjoyed watching her journey and watching her process and watching each experiment that she runs and watching and observing what she learns. And that it's inspirational to me as well.
Wow. So Robin, when you first went to the Strategic Vision Board workshop, were you looking for a vision for your business? You must have had some idea about what you were hoping for.
Well, I think one of the things I've observed through the years is that the whole coaching process, I'm aware of a number of coaches out there. And I think in my mind, I thought coaching was rah, 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 system bar, that kind of thing. And in listening to Deondra, what was very apparent to me, it was more than gathering up some pictures and slapping them on a board. It was really a strategic process to think, and she uses the kata as the framework to get you to do this. And I'm always interested in anything that sounds Eastern, that has an Eastern bent. And so I could see the connection. And as a result, I knew there was a framework. I said, that makes sense to me, that you wouldn't just be encouraging people, you would use a framework. And so the kata, from what I could gather at that time, was something that resonated with me.
Well, having that framework then and being able to see that there is a pathway forward, it's not just thinking something and then wishing for it and someone saying, you go, girl, right?
Exactly. Which I think is what a lot of people think coaching is. And I like this because it has a firm framework that produces where you see results and you see them very quickly. And I also like this process because it works through your fears. I mean, the biggest experiment I've run has to do with getting past my fears. And I think that's been a huge accomplishment for myself.
Wow. So when you think about that, and Deondra, when you hear Robin talking about that, what's the coach's role? How do you see the coach's role when somebody's facing something that maybe is about, I don't know if I can do that? How do you help that person?
Well, this goes back to one of the elements of the Kata code in terms of it's important to have a coach and be a coach. And why that relationship is so important, and this is why the Kata is embedded with the work that I do with the strategic visioning process, is that, whatever big, huge, audacious, bold, outlandish, wild, and, totally far out there, insanely imaginative thing that we want to accomplish, it can be overwhelming in terms of, oh my goodness, no one is doing this, or this is so big, or I've never done this before. And we could allow that fear to cripple us and to prevent us from even getting started. And, and that's how our mind works, something that's unknown, something that's new, we can be intimidated because we don't know where to start and just apprehensive about getting started anyway. It's easier to continue with business as usual, what we know and what we're comfortable with. So why coaching is important and why practicing the improvement kata is so important, because you have someone there with you shoulder to shoulder that is encouraging you, that is reminding you of the pattern, that's carefully guiding you through the steps and helping you to see that that unknown or whatever it is you're unsure about, that's the point where you get excited, because that provides an opportunity for you to try something, which leads to learning something new and which leads to growth and a shift in mindset. And so what I see as my role of a coach is, of course, developing these big, these strategic plans, or grasping these visions, but then developing the plan is a key part of that. So going from, the excitement to execution, as I like to say, and from dreaming to doing, and identifying what is that first small step I can take. And if the step is small enough, well, then your mind and your body and all parts of you are like, well, this is so small. I can run an experiment. I can try this. I can test it out. And regardless of whatever the outcome is of whatever this is I want to test, I'm going to learn something. Hip, hip, hooray, yay for me. And then, having a coach along the way to use as a sounding board to bounce these ideas off of, to share in the excitement, to share in the learning, and to remind the learner of the pattern, to not get too far ahead, to not take too big of a step, and to be reminded of the ultimate goal or the vision that you're working and striving to achieve. So that's where I see it's the importance of the role of the coach and that whole relationship between coach and learner.
So Robin, I'm thinking as I'm thinking about the women who are taking your trips, for some of them, that has to be stepping out of their comfort zone.
Oh, without a doubt. Many of them had traveled domestically, but when you start talking about going to somewhere that's literally 17 hours, where there's a 17-hour difference, let's say like in Australia or Taiwan, that kind of thing, and the preparation and the things that they learn along the way. So we prepare an entire year to 15 months in advance to going. So in addition to the financial arrangement, it's really about packing hacks, a variety of travel hacks, introducing them to the culture that they're going to be in for 12 days minimum. It's a whole variety of things, and it's a mindset development kind of thing. And one of the joys that I get from it is watching a very timid, let's say 68-year-old going on an international trip for the first time, and then watching them during the course of the trip and, recognizing how they are navigating through cultural barriers, how they are navigating through, let's say, language barriers, or getting lost. Or I had a person lose their passport or misplace their passport, and helping that person process how to get through those problems. So the beautiful part of it is that because you're 50 plus doesn't mean that you stop learning, and that you're still developing. And I think as I learned the kata, I hope to be able to transfer those principles over into my business as it relates to the development and growth of older women.
I was just thinking the same thing, Robin. I could just imagine you asking some of those kind of coach questions of people as they're struggling with, I can't remember what I did with my passport, or I don't know if I can not have my cheeseburgers for 12 days or whatever it is. Yeah. Wow.
Or watching a person, or even watching a person overpack. I mean, just you would be surprised the amount of packing some people, or things that they bring along on a trip. So that's another way of using. I foresee using the kata.
Right. Well, you haven't traveled with my husband, so if you want. They always say women overpack. You haven't seen my husband.
Oh wow.
Wow. Well, yeah. So I can just imagine so many benefits that to the business and how you are going to be an amazing leader on these trips. I know you're already an amazing leader, but having this Kata background and sort of getting it ingrained in you is going to make you an even more amazing leader on the trip. Did you anticipate as you started working with Deondra?
No, not initially. I think one of the comments that she made is during our session was, I want you to learn this so that you can teach other older women this. And then I began to think about, okay, how can we incorporate, those principles into my business? And one of the ways, and she'll probably coach me through, I know she'll coach me through this process during our next session, but one of the ways I envision it is creating, beyond the travel, other kinds of personal and professional development workshops, because women at age 50 plus still have dreams. Some want to write a book, some want to start a business. I just met a 78-year-old woman who just started a business. I'm like, who does that? And so these are reminders to the world as well as to myself as I age that these things can be done. And I think from my experience with working with Deondra and the Kata, it is definitely something that I can work with older women, whether it's through the travel leg of it or through the professional development leg of it, or the dreaming and imagining process.
Yeah. And Deondra, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say that sort of the dreaming and imagining, the visioning piece, I think is not something that is sort of inherent to the Toyota Kata, but it's something that you've really enhanced and brought more to. And I was hoping you'd talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. Well, here's the thing about it. Actually, it is a part of the Kata, but I think I pick up on it more because that's so aligned with my purpose and what's on my strategic vision board and what's associated with my Wouldn't It Be Great? Because as you're learning the Kata, the first of the 4 steps of the improvement Kata is to get the direction or get the challenge. You want to understand ultimately what is it that you're working towards. And that aspirational goal has a time frame of, it could be from 6 months to 3 years out. But even before that, and if you look at Rother's work, he talks about the vision. And the vision is what's far off. It is ultimately what it is you hope to achieve. So my far off vision, my bucket list, what I want to do before I exit this planet is, I have this aspiration of developing a world of problem solvers and getting people connected to their vision, getting people connected to their purpose, and using the Kata to help them understand how to take those steps to get there. So a lot of the work that I do is centered around step 1, that challenge, and everything that's associated with that. Because once you have that clarity and once you have that purpose, well, then that's your why. And then the how and the what, you understand and you develop those as you go through grasping the current condition, establishing the target condition, and then running those experiments and, overcoming obstacles as you're working to get closer and closer to your challenge. But one of the things that I want to share that, and I don't know that, for those who are listening, they won't be able to see me. But as Robin is talking, I'm over here, waving my virtual pom-poms. I'm bouncing around in my chair because all of the dots are starting to connect. I don't know if Robin remembers this or not, but when I was on Tammy's virtual live stream, one of the questions Robin asked, because I had just completed a strategic vision board session virtually, and there were over 100 women who participated in that session. And there were some retirees. And one of the things that I talked about during that live stream is that some of the retirees identified their vision, their challenge, what they wanted to work toward. And Robin immediately picked up on that and was asking me questions via the chat. And later on, we talked about that more through some, during that, some of our earlier sessions. And, she was really curious about, the goal setting among this population. And I began to better understand why, because this is the group that she's working with. And, one of the things that we talked about is you don't stop dreaming. As long as you have breath in your body and, you are able to open your eyes every day, there is a vision that you can work towards. And age does not put a limitation on visions. So hearing her talking about, for one, the way in which she is embracing the improvement kata, and not only that, the way in which she's embracing lean in general, and then how she's using that to help people accomplish their dreams and work toward their goals. That's what this work that we do is all about in continuous improvement, is developing people. And I just love to see that she's using this to develop the specific population and target audience that she's working with.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've noticed in my own coaching is one of the first questions I ask people when we first meet, actually, is what do you want in terms of spirituality, and what does spirituality mean to you? And that question I find to be a really powerful question. It's not always about religion, right? Because for some people, of a lot of people, they may not be religious, but there always is this connection that people ask, or often answer the question about that needing or feeling that they want to connect, that they want to have a legacy of connecting and building other people up. And what I'm hearing from both of you is that this really can drive into that and move that forward.
Yeah, I'd like to add too, you have to remember, so many people in this cohort, women in this cohort, have been really dedicating their lives to other people. And not just people, but organizations and churches and that kind of thing. They've been very committed to helping and developing others. But we know that we must continue to put gas into our own tank. And I think the kata is the way to do it. And it's non-threatening. I love the terminology experiment. The word itself makes me more willing to try things, because in my mind, initially an experiment was relegated to scientists. But when I found out it was just everyday language, and when you think about what an experiment is, if you find out it doesn't work going in this direction, you change courses and you examine what worked and what didn't. And I think all of that is inherent in learning the kata. So.
Wow. You say you love Eastern things, and I don't know you revealed where your next trips are going to be, but I was just wondering, do you have a vision at some point of ever going to Japan?
We've done, not Japan per se, we've done Vietnam, we've done Bangkok, we've done Taiwan, and as I mentioned, actually 3 places in Vietnam. I've always wanted to go to Vietnam, so that dream came true for myself. And many of the women on that trip never would have thought of Vietnam. And they're so glad it is that they went, or that they did think of it. I initially Japan was not really on the list, but watching the Olympics, I may add it. We're actually going to Ghana in July of 2022, a year from now.
July 2022.
Yes. And so that may really kick off the exploration of that continent. So.
Oh, wow. So you haven't been to Africa before?
Just northern. We've been to northern Africa. We've been to Morocco and we've been to Tunisia, but not Western Africa.
Wow, that is going to be a very powerful and meaningful trip.
Yes.
And a lot of interesting research to do before you go.
Yes.
So how do you pick countries?
A lot of it, in all honesty, is based on where I want to go. And and then I have done needs assessments and surveys, and luckily a lot of those trips have lined up. We had one person, her dream trip was to Australia, so we made that happen. another person's dream trip, although it's been put off twice. We'll hopefully go next October. Her dream trip was Italy. So I get a feel for where they want to go, and then I try to make that happen. Sometimes it works in that way, and sometimes it ends up being another country. But those same people are going to be on that trip along with a whole lot of new people as well.
Wow. So Deondra, you thinking about taking a trip with Robin?
Oh, without a doubt. This year, as I made my 50th trip around the sun.
Yay.
So I fit into the requirements that I can travel with the This I Do For Me cohort. And absolutely. And just then when Robin shared, I didn't realize that she was planning a trip to Ghana. And I'm making a mental note, to follow her especially closely, because that's a trip that I would like to join.
That's good to
Wow.
hear. We have space.
Okay, good. And I know how to pack light.
Thank God.
Yeah, if you've traveled for business, you do learn to pack
Yes.
light or pack lighter. Yeah, yeah. I've had the experience of taking youth on a number of international trips, and one of the things that's interesting there is we tell them that they can only pack a carry-on, and the expressions are shock on their face. And then they figure out they need to wear their hiking boots on the plane, but so they have to do that, and but they make it. They figure it out. Leave a little room to bring home souvenirs.
Exactly.
So it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Deondra, we've been talking a lot about the Toyota Kata, the improvement Kata. How did you first get involved in that? How did you learn about it?
So I first got involved in it in one of my past work lives. One of my colleagues, a member of my team, introduced me to it because we were experiencing an issue, a performance issue, in terms of what the customer expected and what the level of service they were actually receiving. And so my colleague, called me one day and he said, I have started reading this book and it speaks to this issue that we've been experiencing. And not only that, it speaks to, at the time I managed a team of master black belts. And some of the things that we were focusing on was shifting the culture and mindset around continuous improvement. It was a heavy Lean Six Sigma organization. And we wanted people to understand that, regardless of if you were certified with a green belt or black belt, or like I jokingly say sometimes, or if you have a belt from the department store, that you have the opportunity to have an impact on improving your processes. And so I started out, I read the book and I could not put it down. And then from there, I just was curious and I wanted to learn more. And I signed up for a virtual training session that was facilitated by Dr. Liker. And then I learned that there was going to be a KataCon coming up. And I got the approval from leadership. I'd already told them I discovered this way of improvement that I think would be beneficial to how we do business and how we delight our customers. And so they sent me to KataCon. And the true turning point is the seat that I picked, because I always like to sit front and center so I can take notes and pay attention. And I didn't know anyone. And when it was time for the sessions and the speakers to start, here comes this woman and said, is anyone sitting next to you? And I said, well, now you are. And that happened to be Tracy Defoe. And during the one of the keynotes, one of the presenters, Michael Lombard, said, he mentioned the Kata code, that everyone should have a coach and be a coach. And I turned to Tracy, we hadn't even known each other a good 2 or 3 hours yet. She lived in Canada, I live in Indianapolis. And I asked her, would you be my Kata coach? And she did not hesitate. And she said, yes. And that was, and being coached by Tracy was the turning point for me, because she helped me to understand that what it meant that it was okay to say, I don't know, that it was okay not to have the answers, that, I was very much a person that wanted to develop very detailed action plans and check things off the list, and things had to have a certain timeline and operate a certain way. And she helped me to, just to overcome fears. Working with her really changed my management style. It helped with my, how I looked at life, how I approached at, solving problems and making improvements. And that was the big turning point for me. And ever since then, any opportunity I could to attend a conference, a webinar, and to practice, that was the thing. I started out as a learner, and I think that is so important with anyone who's going to begin the journey, that they have their own storyboard, that they have a coach, and that, they begin by practicing the kata exactly. And that's exactly how Tracy coached me. And I have not turned back. And so now it's my mission to teach the world the improvement kata. And my mom jokingly says that I'm trying to start a kata church. And she may be right. But even my mom is understanding the steps of the improvement kata. And, different things that we're running into, sometimes I hear her using the language. Wow. And that really excites me. So if mama can kata, anyone can kata. Yeah. And we all got a kata.
Got a kata.
Got a kata.
Oh.
Well, yeah, and that's how I met Deondra, actually, was at a subsequent KataCon. I think you were on the stage at that point. Were you?
We had met at, I think, a lean leadership coaching conference.
I think that's right. Yeah.
And then, and we, became fast friends and was joined at the hip for the first time we met. And then when we saw each other again, it was at that next KataCon, where I happened to be keynoting. And I was so excited because that was something that I had on my vision board, is that I wanted to keynote at KataCon.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And you made it, which was great. Was great. Yeah. Wow. So, Robin, as you're thinking about how you move forward with this, you've been a learner for a while. And you're going to be sort of maybe doing a sort of little undercover kata, you think, with your traveling companions. Are you thinking about taking it more broadly than that?
I really would like to. This is something that I wish I had known about long before now, but now is the time. And yes, I see myself clearly doing that. I'm already using the language with people, and even in planning a future trip, I said to a potential partner, wouldn't it be great if we did da 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 da? And so I even caught myself off guard with that one. And so, yes, I think it's embedded enough in my spirit, in my mind enough. It's not something that you walk away from, because it is something, once you know that it works. And when I say work, I mean that it leads you to where you need to go, whether you're aware of that or not. I think that it's something, I know that it will be something that I use throughout the rest of my life.
That's great. That's great. One of the things that I really love about the kata and the idea of doing experiments is that we get so stuck with making decisions because we don't know if it's the right decision or not. And there's this sense that, if you make the wrong decision, that's, sort of the end of the world because you can't change it afterwards. And I just, I love that. I love that idea of saying, okay, well, let's just run the experiment and let's see what happens. And I do think that's language you can use anyway. You can start to help people think about that. And then the other component that is just I think is so important is the learning. And I'm just wondering, Robin, how do you keep track of your learning as you're going through this?
So I'm reading for the second time the Rother book. And I stay enmeshed in webinars. The one thing I like about this arena is that someone is offering a webinar all of the time.
Yeah.
And I hope to get more involved with, is it Kata Girl Geeks? And,
good.
And so just entering those circles in a timely way, in a way that's comfortable for me and my schedule, is how I see myself moving forward. So yeah, I take it very seriously. It's also one of those things that if I haven't read something about it that particular day, you can kind of feel it. It's like, okay, I just gravitate toward it like a magnet. It's like, okay, I haven't read anything Kata related, lean related, that kind of thing. So I'm pretty committed to it.
Mhm.
That's great. And hey, thanks for the shout out for the Kata Geek. So, and just so if you're listening or watching and you're a woman and you're interested in learning more about the Kata Geeks is a great way to get your feet wet with that. So you can send a comment to me on LinkedIn or on wherever it is you listen or watch, and we'll follow up with how to get connected to that. And of course, if you're a woman and you're involved in Lean continuous improvement, join Women in Lean on LinkedIn. I always want to give those shout outs. We've given some great shout outs here. Mike Rother and Tracy Defoe with the Women in Lean and the Kata Geeks. And of course, this I do for me. Wow. Yeah. So Robin, with this I do for me, one of the things that really intrigues me about that is, obviously that it is for women who are over 50. Do you find that there are certain women who say to you, I've been looking for this for a while? Do they just sort of run into your arms, virtually speaking?
I think so. I think when I first announced that I was doing the business, people were like, I am just so glad to know that this is dedicated to our age group, because very little is. And I think it had an interesting bent as it relates to the travel side. So I think that's what excites people more and more. And as new people come on, I think they come on because they see photos of what we're doing. They hear testimonials about how people feel they're growing, why the trip was important. And again, it's not a hedonistic kind of travel. It's growth. I mean, we have fun. You do your fair amount of sightseeing, because you're not going to go to Australia and not go to the Sydney Opera House. You'd be crazy to do that, not to do that. So you're going to do that. But the central bit is, how are you growing? And what does it lead you to do? And one of the key indicators is that people will say to me after their first trip, when is the next trip? And that's something that they didn't do or never thought they would do prior to that.
Yeah. Which kind of makes me think about one of the things we talk about, which is the micro learnings, right? So it's the growth is sometimes it's this big aha, but a lot of time it's this one little thing on top of another little thing on top of another little thing, right? And over the course of preparing for the trip, I can imagine in the 12 days and then the reflection afterwards, people must have a lot of those.
And as we travel to Ghana, and we particularly to Cape Coast, where you have the slave castles, that's usually a very emotional experience. So it will take all of our learning to a new level, our self-awareness to a new level as well.
Yeah, I've heard of people sort of not feeling able to step through the door, literally, Yeah, it being so meaningful and emotional to them.
Yes. So
anticipating things like that.
So there will be a fair amount of processing of that and allowing people just to sit with that as well.
Yeah, reflection.
Yes.
Wow. I'd like to ask both of you, just as we wrap up, and I'll ask you, Deondra, first, because I know I've asked you this question before, and then Robin to kind of wrap us up. What advice would you give to a young person? We've been talking about women over 50. What advice would you give to a young person starting out from where you're sitting right now?
Starting out in terms of starting out in life?
In life, career, being an adult.
You know that this thing we call life is such an amazing experience. And enjoy every opportunity to gain a new experience, to learn something new. Realize that you don't worry about perfection. Just seek progress, seek improvement, seek ways to learn new things or do things differently, and take some time to really think about regardless of where you are, no matter how young you are, to think about your vision and purpose, why it is you're on this planet, and what you want to do to connect to that, because that will guide you. And I say that because I've done strategic vision board workshops with people who are as young as 6 to 8 years old, and them tapping into, they have control over their future, they have control over their destiny, and envisioning what it is they want to be, that they can help, they can guide and shape that. That is so empowering, and especially to young women. So that is the advice that I would give to a young person. Embrace life, enjoy life, get connected, understand what your vision and purpose is, and go after it one step at a time, and then keep moving on to the next one.
One step at a time. On to the next one. Thanks, Deondra. Robin.
I would definitely say that it is imperative for young people to travel and to see other parts of the world and to experience various cultures. That, I think, is critical to your overall worldview. We have a lot of people who enter social work and they've never been to another country. And in order to help those even in your own country, I think it helps to expand your worldview. I'd like to also add, I think it's imperative to have things like the Kata, continuous learning, embedded in the curriculum, starting with grammar school. Because in order to change the world, that's where you're going to start, with young people. And what better way to do it than in the school system? So
I agree with you on that. I'm sure Deondra does too.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Let's cut in kindergarten.
yes.
Well, actually, that's part of Summer Rother's work, Kata in the classroom.
Yes.
And on the Kata to Grow website, that's designed to teach children about the steps of the Kata and learning problem solving. And there are materials available that educators can use to teach that, or they can call upon any of us in the Kata community. We'd be happy to guide them through that as well. And I agree, it's so important that we teach our children how it is to to make these steps for improvement, and to be able to have that mindset that embraces change, and help them to realize how they can accomplish no matter what it is, no matter how big or small, by having this methodical scientific approach.
Yes. Well, thank you, Deondra. Thank you, Robin. It's been so much fun speaking with you, and wonderful travels, Robin.
Thank you.
And keep on cutting.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
This is Bella Engelbach, and I'd like to thank Robin Tillotson and Deondra Wardelle for being my guests on The Edges of Lean. What have you learned from listening to Robin about her continuous improvement journey and how she is empowering women over 50? And from Deondra about the power of the Toyota Kata. We'd love to hear from you. Find us on LinkedIn or comment wherever you watch or listen. No matter how you travel to the edges of Lean, your ratings, reviews, and comments are greatly appreciated. Please join me in exploring more of the edges of Lean. There's a lot to learn. And check out my friends in the Lean Communicators community at leancommunicators.com. You'll find more podcasts and videos with lots of great new content every week. The Edges of Lean is written and produced by Bella Engelbach. This is a Lean for Humans production.